Okay, here we go. I'd like to call the village board to order for Tuesday, December 18th. Roll call, please.
Trustee Allison Williams.
Present.
Trustee Paul.
Present.
Trustee Zerbal.
Here.
Trustee Mark Williams.
Here.
Trustee Bukowski.
Here.
Trustee Melchewski.
Here.
President Kardasky.
Here, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please keep all of our men and women in uniform throughout the world in your thoughts. Okay, I have no changes to the agenda.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Action on minutes from November 13th and November 27th. Joint Village Board and Finance and Personnel Joint Meeting November 13th.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Village Board regular meeting November 27, 2018.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve those minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Any comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda. Are there any comments from the public who would like to talk about items not on the agenda? One more time, any comments not on the agenda items? Okay, let's move on. Written communications and/or announcements, I have none.
None received from the Office of the Clerk Treasurer, Madam President.
Okay. Number 8, action on consent agenda. Request to approve operator's license, budgeted expenditures.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the budgeted or consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 9, public hearing regarding the planned unit development PUD overlay zoning district ordinance for certain land located at Lombardi Avenue and Marley Lane, Titletown District Development Phase 2. Aaron.
All right. The requested ordinance approval is for a planned unit development, or PUD, for the Titletown Phase 2 district in the Titletown area. The site plan, as identified on page 49 of the packet, shows the overall PUD plan. The 4 northernmost items on there, items G2, G1, J2, and J1 are all identified for future commercial, retail, entertainment type uses. F2 is a ramped podium public area. Item L is a future retail potential grocery store use. Item N are townhouses. And item P2 is also a townhouse grouping. P1 are potential stacked flats. Those are the residential components of the PUD layout. There's, excuse me a second. There's underground or at-grade parking underneath the podium level, where you see item F2 slopes up, and the actual parking you see there's actually underneath a podium or a public area between the apartment building and office building are not shown on this one because it shows the parking area. But the parking is at grade underneath that podium area between the office building to the north and apartment building to the south. About 150 units of apartment units within the PUD. The proposed PUD, again, this is phase 2. The connection, there's some circulation within this PUD at this point. We're looking at connecting, from the village's standpoint, making sure that there's a pedestrian connection between future phase 2 to the west. So we're looking at incorporating a sidewalk along the Lombardi Access frontage road at some point in the future. Along those lines of pedestrian access, there is a documented need for some improved pedestrian connections at Ridge Road, where there's a current yellow flashing system. We are recommending that goes to a full red light flashing red light hawk system to have a stop condition for traffic. At this point, traffic does not necessarily stop the pedestrians. It pretty much rolls through. So to make sure that that is addressed. In terms of conditions of approval of the PUD, from staff recommendations, what we have are to coordinate with the Ashwaubenon Department of Public Works regarding a development agreement for planned public improvements to Brookwood Drive and Marley Lane. Titletown Development is funding the reconstruction and utility replacement along Brookwood Drive, and they're also planning improvements to Marley Lane. In terms of stormwater, coordinate with the Ashwaubenon Department of Public Works regarding state and local stormwater management requirements. Public safety, the fire diagram within the bound document has changed to the Titletown Phase 2 fire protection diagram as the approved plan to be used going forward. Forestry, provide detailed landscape plans when submitting for individual building site plan approvals. Determine the appropriate means to access and maintain the planned landscaping on the south side of the fencing for the townhomes on the south side of Brookwood Drive. The aforementioned hawk system on Ridge Road as also a condition of approval, and include the installation of additional bicycle parking at the M entrance to the podium parking. Those are recommendations from the Bike and Ped Committee. There are representatives of Titletown Development, the engineering firm, architecture firm, and the Green Bay Packers in attendance for any specific questions related to the project.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. First of all, I'd like to know if there's anybody in the audience that would like to speak for this development. Michael Cantor.
Good evening, everyone. Michael Cantor with Titletown Development. I'm from Lodge Kohler and also 200 East 82nd Street in New York City. So I reside in 2 locations over the last couple of years. First of all, very exciting for all of us to be here today at this point to present this plan to the village board. What you're seeing is representing over $100 million private investment that we're looking to put forth to complete phase 2 and to grow upon the energy and synergy that I think people have seen in phase 1 with Hinterland and Lodge Kohler and Bellin, and with the Titletown Tech building that's almost opening up that we're all extremely excited about and what it's going to do for the area. Last time we were in this room, we were sitting in front of the planning board, and part of the takeaway from that meeting in early November was to make sure that we spent time with village staff, meeting with affected neighborhood property owners, and we've had several meetings over those times discussing the plans and our vision for moving forward. We had a few conversations today and over those weeks about a couple of items that I think are important that people understand that we'll be addressing. Aaron highlighted the stormwater from a local and state level. We had a conversation about the property owners on the south of Brookwood and the concerns they have of pooling stormwater, and I'm here to say and state and getting through the local and state regulations for our overall stormwater plan. We're going to be fixing that. It was a condition that I know existed before we came into town and purchased those properties. I understand some people feel the condition worsened after taking hold, but our plan is to comprehensively fix that. And I wanted to make sure everyone understood our direction there. I also understand that some people, in looking at the updated fire protection diagram, had some concerns about traffic being able to drive up those fire lanes into the development. If you look today, you'll see we have a similar condition right by Ron Wolf Way in Brookwood. And the way those fire lanes work is we have a row of bollards that can collapse and come down and are removable in the event of emergency. It's something that public safety has reviewed and is confident that works. We'll either do a situation like that in the fire lanes or something similar that may fit better with the neighborhood character. But it's been something we've been cognizant of, and you can notice how we've fortified the perimeter in phase 1 with the bollards along Ridge. So it's something we've always been cognizant of, and we've been sure to address that in the plan, and it'll show in future site plan submittals when we go to ultimately build. So I just wanted to cover those hierarching things, and we do have the team here from R.A. Smith and NBBJ and other firms that have helped design this. It's been a collaborative effort, and we've worked with village staff, and it's been a great experience as always, and we're excited to hear the board's ruling. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody out there that would like to speak against the Phase 2 of the Titletown PUD?
You going to against? You were started with those in favor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Does anybody else want to speak in favor of this? I thought we were done with that, Ken. Is there anybody out there who'd like to speak in favor of this development? Okay, moving on. Anybody out there who'd like to speak against this PUD Phase 2?
Don't be shy.
Okay, and you are Mr. Higgins.
Yeah, I gotta make this at the point that you haven't started bigger here. Well, I did. Not sure how to. Yeah, we have it. I just like to make it bigger. Let's see. Nope. Kinda, sorta. There we go. Escape. Yep.
I'm Wayne Higgins of Traffic Engineering Services. My office is in Elm Grove, Wisconsin. And I was asked to look at the impact of Phase 2 traffic on Marley Lane because the owners in the
Sir,
area...
could you pull the microphone a little closer to you?
A little closer.
I'm getting hard of hearing at my old age.
So
Thank
am I.
you.
Thank you for asking. Requested that I look at the traffic impact study that had been completed and give comment about it. My first step was to look, as you see the exhibit up here, to find there was a comprehensive understanding of the area traffic. And I found that the traffic study had focused on the perimeter of the property and not included the west side of Marley Lane. And normally this is to be done in a traffic study. So I went and met with Pat Hawley at R.H. Smith, and Pat said that they had not tabulated that information but had collected it with a video. And I asked if he would please pull the video out of the vault and give us the counts off the west side of the road. He wasn't able to get that done in the time frame that we had. So last Thursday, I went and counted the 4:30 to 5:30 period for the gas station and also for the shopping center entrances. And those are shown in the next slide, and if I'm lucky, I'll hit the right button, and we are. Very difficult to read, I see up there, but what we're looking at is a Thursday in December, and so Thursday in December is always something that you question, is it really high because of Christmas, or is it really low because it's December relative to all year long? So I went to the Wisconsin DOT records, which is the same thing that they had used from their January counts from 3 years ago. And their January counts had to be factored to get to an average weekday type traffic. And so I did the same thing. And my next exhibit, which is 1B, has the traffic volumes on the west side of the street and going north and south identifying in the middle where the future Titletown access is going to be. Part of the concern I saw was that southbound traffic makes U-turns at the median at the north end, and it's very clearly posted, no U-turn. I did observe that there were no time when traffic was such that accident would occur from having made that U-turn. Traffic volumes were low enough that they certainly could do it safely. So we made one more step, which I don't have a slide on. I just got it this morning. And that was, we asked the DOT for traffic accidents in the area for the last 3 years. And there are none. So that's good news. That means as it is out there today, it is working safely for the motor vehicle traffic. So then looking at the counts and the movements, we have the traffic coming out of the gas station, which in some cases is even somebody coming south on Marley that goes into the gas station, drives through it, and makes a left turn to avoid the no U-turn sign and make their left turn to go north. I thought that was a very interesting maneuver, and the service station isn't getting any benefit from it, but it is a public option, I guess. The traffic coming out of the shopping center, not real high. I was very surprised. I thought it would be higher. But at this time, I learned that there's several thousands of square feet that is not occupied for business. So that would mean we'd see a higher level of traffic if it was completely rented. To be able to then compare and look at issues, I took the TIA document prepared from Ari Smith and added the traffic coming out of Titletown and going in to my exhibit. And that takes it down further, and you add to that traffic coming from the south, the people that are making a right turn, which is only 5. But coming from the north, we got 165 making a left turn. That becomes a problem, in my opinion, because that's 165 cars now that have to be mixed with the traffic coming out of the gas station and going into the gas station. Down further is the shopping center access, which is not really impacted too much by the turns, but it would be for the left turns, and that's predominant movement. From a traffic standpoint, those 2 driveways, the gas station and the shopping center, should be one. So I put them together as one driveway across the street from Titletown access. This makes a much safer condition because now the geometry which is proposed, which gives a median to the north, limiting people to turn into the gas station, and also people turning out would be mixing up nearer the intersection. This can then make traffic move at a central location instead of a offset, and it'll lead to a safer condition. In talking to the owner of the service station and to Mr. Kuhn, we are finding that that option should go forward for the west side of the road. And this is coming about because of Titletown. If they weren't going to have this traffic on the east side of the road, the west side would continue to operate safely as it does today and as it shows from the traffic accident review. This is an example of all of the traffic counts that you can get off the internet from the DOT for the area, and that's how I got my growth to be able to get it into an average December weekday. The next exhibit shows 2 lanes southbound, 2 lanes northbound, and left turn lanes facing each other at the aligned driveways, which I feel is getting the safest operation for long term. And with this kind of operation, I was told that the triangle was to kind of be kept. You didn't really want to have it altered. And there is room to be able to just do a minor sliver off the side of the triangle to get to a single lane northbound and then add the other lane after the right turn, which is very similar to the geometry that had been proposed previously. This is an overlay on the other geometry. It takes into account the conditions that were needed for the TIA in terms of traffic just on the east side of Barley. I've now added in the west side and have a long-term improvement that should be done as a part of the project. The other item that I did was, did we go past it? Can I go backward? I'll do it this way. It's always more than one way to do things. In this example, I took the position of saying that could we live with 2 northbound and 1 southbound and a left turn lane and still align and not have to take anything additional on the west side of the road. It shows the geometry to do that, and it could work. But it is most desirable to have 2 lanes in both directions and to go back. 2 lanes in both directions gives us a left turn lane for storage, and if somebody's making a right turn into either driveway, there's room to pass them, so safety is accomplished by doing that. I would answer any questions that you might have, or certainly we'll see that we'll be back again because this concept of combining the 2 driveways is not in front of us as a final drawing, just as a concept.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, is there anybody else out there who would like to speak for or against this project?
Thank you.
Tim, state your name and address, please, for the record.
Thanks, Wayne. Name, well, first of all, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Appreciate you giving me the time to speak. My name is Tim Keene. I'm the property owner who developed the 2 commercial properties that are located at the at 1241 Lombardi Access Road. And that development happened in 2002, roughly 16 years ago. To the front part is my restaurant. I also am owner and operator of Margarita's Famous Mexican Food and Cantina. And who over the last 16 years we've been able to and now proudly serve over 6,000 guests per week, which is one of the reasons that I'm for the development, but I just want to make sure that this is done properly. And I want to make sure that you guys are going through the proper steps, that there's not a congestion area in there, because if you do the math, roughly 20% to 30% of the residents of those guests are coming from the village of Ashwaubenon and from your neighborhood. So that's 1,200 to 2,000 people a week that are coming into that. So if there gets to be a period where there's a lot of congestion, I have a lot to lose there if the road and infrastructure is not done properly. So the second building is that Wayne talked about is my business center, which is roughly a 25,000 square foot mixed-use development. Currently consists of 6 successful businesses known as Forward Dental, Massage Envy, Cellcom, Bellin Health. These are a lot of daytime, mostly daytime users. As Wayne spoke to the fact that I do have 2 3,000 square foot suites that are vacant. The one suite I would like to make as an overflow room to margaritas, but unfortunately, I just do not have the parking for that, which is no one's fault, but my own. A lot has happened in the past 16 years. I really enjoyed working with the village 16 years ago. Ted Pamperin, Jerry Van Sistine, Keith Cormier, Nubsy DeClean, Jerry Menny, Charlotte Nelson, and Steve Kabaki was the village president. Ted bent over backwards to make margaritas happen. I still remember the day when I came in here to get liquor license approval. I was going up against Texas Roadhouse, and for a local business to, as a local small business operator, to leapfrog me over a national chain and give me the liquor license before they did them was awesome. I thoroughly appreciated that. As you must know, I'm here tonight because my business, along with other small businesses owners, and I know Dan Pamperin's here, are being identified in the Titletown district area. Dan and I have over 46 years of ownership in that area. As you know, we are all part of the Green Bay Titletown district. It is known as the Titletown Opportunity Area, as you have is distinguished in your comprehensive plan. And in your comprehensive plan, that includes the property from Marley Lane to Brookwood Drive that connects to Argonne Street. And that would include tenants such as Dan Pamperin with a Shell station, my 2 properties that I just explained, Red Lobster, Chuck E. Cheese, Pick and Save, and the Packers own on the end the U.S. Bank, and soon to be the Greater Convention Bureau. As we went to the Plan Commission meeting, the one thing that everybody kept saying, what the heck do you think of the development? And I'm not a traffic engineer or a traffic expert. I just kept saying, well, why did you stop at the corner? Why is not the west side being considered? If you use, for common sense, the footprint that should be used over there to a non-traffic guy would be the same thing that's located over on Argonne, where there's 3 lanes going southbound, or 2 lanes going southbound and 3 lanes going north. That has a lot less use than what we have over on Marley. So the obvious question would be, why are we not repeating that plan over where we're located? It makes sense. The disproportionality difference where the Packers and on both sides of the road over there does not make sense, since there's no, there's not surrounding neighbors as much as there is over by us. Just go. For the past 2 years, I've been mostly ignored by you village folks. These communications I've been asking to be part of your plan. Never once have I been talked to other than at the Plan Commission meeting. Mike Aubringer, we first started this in November of 2011. Mike Aubringer held a meeting on 11/15/16 that was attended by Dan Pamperin, Brad Toll, Ed Policy with the Green Bay Packers, Ron Antone, and a couple other engineers. At this meeting, Dan and I requested to be included on the right-of-ways that include Marley, Lombardi Access Road, various intersections. The obvious ones are Lombardi and the Access Road, the triangle located on the Marley Lane and Brookwood Court. There has been an update on the Titletown District Phase 2 plan with plans from the TIA that obviously had building changes to it. I'm simply asking the Village of Ashwaubenon to fulfill its own responsibilities and take responsibilities for the entire Titletown development, which includes us in the Titletown opportunity area. Thus far, the Village of Ashwaubenon has been very short-sighted with their approach. In my estimation, you have used a head-in-the-sand approach. And that is a famous idiom that states, ignore the facts and hope it just goes away. Not leading, but following the Packers. This is not the Village of Green Bay Packers. It's the Village of Ashwaubenon. You represent over 17,000 people, and you also represent various small business owners. You have your own comprehensive plan, 158 pages, that is the village mission statement, is a roadmap for all future development that includes the roadways that I'm just asking you to consider to help foster what will be, that we will fit into it. I didn't ask for the Titletown District to come here. I've been placed inside the Titletown District. And on your own plan, Titletown says underneath opportunities, as Titletown development, the area to the west between Marley Lane, Argonne Street, Lombardi Avenue, Brookwood Drive, and immediately to the south will see changes. Managing these changes to foster positive outcomes, especially in terms of social economic value, by working and proactively communicating with local residents and property owners, can minimize negative outcomes. It's in your own plan, Commission. I read it. I hope you all did. So my question is, have you come up and read your own plan? I hope so. And it states in the Titletown section of your own comprehensive plan that also has us included in it. That's Dan and I in the corner. And so that right there says the Titletown opportunity area, which I am part of. And you guys need to help make me part of it. Just because the Packers stopped at the East Lane does not mean that the village stops there. All I'm asking is that the Village of Ashwaubenon do their fair share with their own, which would include the comp plan. And in addition to that, you have a 125-page pedestrian walkway and pedestrian bicycle path. And you say, well, where are we going to get that money? Well, there's obviously a TIF district that's been created. It was brought to my attention that Mike Aubringer, Dan Pamprin, set up a TIF for the entire surrounding area, not just for the Packer Titletown district. It's my understanding that there's $13.5 to $15.5 million of public TIF dollars that the Ashwaubenon is providing the Titletown district. TIF dollars is public funds that is for public purposes, like an updated TIA, traffic experts like me hiring Wayne Higgins. Traffic study, there's a traffic study needed. Review current flow and estimated trip generations are what that traffic study will do. to say that the Packers don't have to do anything is a reasonable answer is not acceptable. Increase in traffic from the Titletown district will obviously increase and worsen the conflict points that Mr. Higgins talked about. It will lead to public safety issues. I, for one, as I said earlier, I'm not against the Titletown district. I applaud the Packers. They've done many things for the area, for my business, and for the state. And I also applaud Mr. Cantor from the Sterling Development Group, who I reached out to him on the 5th of November. That was after the 5th of November we had a plan commission meeting, and there was no plans there that I thought would suffice. So I forwarded an email on the 10th of November, and it was directed to Michael Cantor. I know that I hated to bother him because I'd soon realized that he was on a honeymoon. But the Green Bay Packers and Sterling Development Group, in less than 16 days, produced this for the Marley Lane area. 16 days. But they corrected their side of the street. They don't own our side of the street. That's your guys' responsibility. We, the neighbors, residents, and small business owners, thank the Packers for all what they do. I appreciate it. And I'm for your project. As Jerry Watson always famously said, I'm just a dumb truck driver. Well, I'm just a dumb restaurant owner that doesn't know all the traffic. I thought Wayne was going to speak after me, so he can answer all those questions, because as I sat in that plan commission meeting and Mary asked me, well, what do you think? I'm like, I don't know what the heck to think. I'm not a traffic expert. All I know is that it sure doesn't look doing nothing on our side of this, doing anything on the west side of Marley does not make sense. However, I will bet that that we can agree that the traffic and the east side of Marley will be impacted as the west side. So, Mary, even in your own email response, it says it seems to think that everything is okay, but you ignore the facts that nothing has been done to the east side. And so I just ask you here tonight that you guys consider doing something to that helps the businesses, which would specifically impact Margarita's, my strip mall, Dan Pamper and the Shell Station, and most of the Red Lobster. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Is there anybody else out there that would like to speak for or against this project? Name and address for the record, please, Dan.
Okay, Dan Pamprin, 1221 Lombardi Access is where I'm at. Wow, I thought I was going to talk a long time. I'm not even going to come close to that. So, I do want to tell you right now, I do not want to stand in the way of this development whatsoever. I think every board member up there, not putting words into your mouth, should vote yes tonight for this development. I think it's a phenomenal addition to the village of Ashwaubenon and to the area. So now everything I say after doesn't matter, but it does. So I'll just give you a quick history of myself. In 1960, I was born to this wonderful community on the Shadow Lane, 5 blocks from this development, and lived there until 1968. Lived on April Lane for 10 years after that, Argonne for 10 years after that, Eminence for 8 years after that, Ashley Court, Mesa Drive, and then finally I moved out of the area in 2000 to Finch Lane. So I spent better part of 40 years of my life within 8 blocks of this development. So I would consider myself very, very informed on what has happened in the area. In 1985, I bought the corner of Lombardi and Marley, and we ran our entire company, with myself being there way more than I want to admit to, until the year 2001, when we moved over on Glory Road in Ashwaubenon, where we now employ over 400 people. So I spent 25 years on that corner, every day, around the clock. And I think I understand the traffic pattern of that corner very well. And I've lived through the history of playing hide and seek with stop signs, adding boulevards, eliminating left turns, eliminating right turns, which made no sense, and all the experimental napkin designs we've done on this intersection. So I lived through that for 25 years. And it was all done with a napkin design, is what I call it, because nobody with any expertise ever did anything. So about, well, I gotta say, 4 years ago, somewhere around 2014, I pounded into Mike's office and said, I'm done. I just looked at this study you did for the vacating the roads, Lombardi Access and that little road that went by, kind of an extension of Brookwood there. I can't remember what that road was. And it does not include any other area except for the boundaries of this development, which he agreed that, yeah, it didn't. So I said, Mike, I want a study done. We got to do a study of this whole area. Not going to hashing anything about, but somehow we needed to pay for this. And then if there was any construction that had to be done, that had to be paid for too. So he brought it to the board to amend the TIF district and add this section from Marley to Brookwood to Argonne and Lombardi. And then, of course, we all know what happened after that. So it sat there again. I still believe, I think what the Packers are doing, phenomenal. I still believe, though, we owe it to the entire community, the business owners, the residents behind there, and the Packers, to look at this whole area. We're going to have $200 million investment put on that 45 acres. And we're doing this again on the back of a napkin. I've built my whole career on knowing what I don't know. And I don't know the fix. And I'm pretty sure nobody in this room knows the fix. But I think we could get professionals to take a look at it and give us a good projection and a good comprehensive study that says what the fix is, not only for Marley, Ridge Road, Argonne, Brookwood, Ori, Morris Avenue, that whole area, all the way down to Oneida Street. Might be some changes to Lombardi too. I don't know. But I think we're putting an awful lot of stuff in this area without taking a very good look at the traffic ramifications that are going to happen. This is not new, guys. I think I've been at this board before and said the same thing. I just think now it's serious. Do I think we should stop anything today? No. I think what I will tell you at site plan today, I voted no. I had a good reason for voting no. My answer was, or my question was answered after the meeting, so I would change my vote today, or tonight. But I did not vote no because of Marley or any of that. I just think that we need to look at the entire area, not just Marley. And I think it's time for the village to spend some money and take a look at it and make sure we're protecting the traffic and the citizens and the parks that are all around that area. We haven't done it yet. I've been asking for it for 20 years, 10 years, and 4 years ago, I thought I had it. I thought we had the money, I thought we were headed in the right direction, and it just sat again. So I would ask you to support this plan. I would ask us not to delay it any longer, but I would also ask you guys to take real hard consideration on looking at the whole thing. And if the village needs to do something, they need to do something. I'm going to put a substantial investment on this corner. We're tearing everything down and doing it. I'm not gonna do that until you guys tell me what's gonna happen in that intersection. Or I know what's gonna happen on that intersection. Because I do believe you're gonna need property from me to do it right. And I know, be careful what you ask for. Because it might be I'm not even there. But we owe it now. It's time to look at this.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Dan. Is there anybody else who would like to speak for or against this project? Anybody who'd like to speak for or against this project?
Could I ask a question of?
It's a public hearing, so we can't. We can
Well,
when
I
we
know,
get-
but the floor is open now. Are we going to open it later? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't want to
we
go
can
through all
op-
this again.
We can open it when we get to the action item, but during the public hearing,
All right.
we're not
All right,
supposed
all
to.
right, All right.
Okay. I need a motion to
I'll move to
close.
close the hearing.
Second. Motion and a second to close the public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay.
I mean, just for the future, I don't know why a public hearing forecloses questions. I just don't understand that, but go ahead, that's all right. We'll decide that sometime in the future.
Okay, action items. Number 10, 10A, action regarding the planned unit development PUD overlay zoning district ordinance for certain land located at Lombardi Avenue and Marley Lane, Titletown District Development Phase 2.
Mary,
Okay.
I'd like to say something, unless you got something real quick.
No, I was just gonna have you open the floor.
Okay, I want to just say something in response to what was said publicly here just a few minutes ago. Everybody up here, all the staff that's over there, was not part of these meetings with Mike, as you all know, because you were at the meetings. We had no inkling of what was said at these meetings, what has happened, and we are trying to rebound from that right now a lot. Okay? So it's not fair to us to accuse us of not doing our jobs when we didn't know anything about it, number one. Number two is I don't think threats are gonna get very far, get you very far. It's working with us and trying to develop this plan, and Marley Lane is what's gonna help us out. And the third thing I wanted to just say is that I've never, on the west side of the property, a couple weeks ago, I met with Dan, and it's the first time that I've heard of putting a driveway in, a shared driveway between the mall, Margarita's, and Dan Pamperin's stores there as well. Tonight was the second time I've seen it. There's no reason that the village of Ashwaubenon or anybody sitting up here would have had that inkling that that was even on the table between the two landowners that are over there. It's not affecting the east side. The main thing that we're talking about is an east side or west side driveway that is not there right now, but that has to change. Dan's property's got to change dramatically, what you said he was going to do. I think that's the time that we're going to be looking at that, and it can change. The west side of Marley Lane can change when development happens and there's agreement in place on who's going to give what up. But I don't think that's going to change the Titletown development for the Packers right now. This is probably the first time that the Packers or any other organization has seen that driveway, shared driveway, if you will, in the plan. I don't know. I wasn't at a meeting that I'd seen it at. But I just want to say that we're open to anything until we see it. But when we're not even at the meetings or hear what's happened, or our staff hasn't even been at them, there's nothing that we can do except to try to take the information that we're getting and make a decision on what we want to do. But I agree that this has been a big issue over the years, and we have to work together on it, and we have to talk about it.
Well, you know, Mark, what I've said to some people is that the Packard Titletown PUD is what we're voting on tonight. When it comes to the west side of Marley, after the first of the year, to get the landowners there, to get everybody together, and we can sit down and discuss it, that's my job. That's what I will do. But that's not what we're voting on tonight. Tonight, we're voting on the Packard PUD.
Correct.
So, did you want to open the floor, Ken?
No. Oh,
No?
Too late, too late.
Okay. So, any questions?
Doug, some of the concerns that they brought up as far as 2 lanes on Marley going south, if you will, is it 2 lanes all the way to Brookwood or not? Going south?
Currently, right now, it's not striped as 2 lanes. It's 1 lane going south on Brookwood as you're heading south, and if you make turning maneuvers in there, that 1 lane is wide enough that you can, in some areas, maneuver around vehicles making that turn. Is that correct or not? I'm not a police officer, and I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn to say that I was, but the biggest concern that we saw, and from what the traffic counts showed and what the design reflected, was as you have traffic coming off of Lombardy onto Marley, coming into this development, you're going to have more traffic coming in and then looking to make that turning maneuver going into the development. Those turns, those left turns as you're heading southbound, left turns into that development, could back traffic up. So that was a concern, and how that was addressed was in the preliminary design, there was a turn lane striped or added in there to handle that traffic so that there's still the same lane of travel that there is today going south down to Brookwood. Now, that isn't to say future development and things, I think it was Mary or Mark, one of the two of you said, as things change and develop to the west, it's a great idea. That's what was done kind of with phase 1, is there was traffic counts and analysis done in phase 1, then there were improvements made because of it. There are traffic counts and analysis and improvements done in phase 2. If there is a phase 3 or a phase 4, it's a great idea. I think Dan even mentioned it, to have a global traffic study done, because you're developing that. You're seeing more pieces to the puzzle are coming into effect. If you remember in phase 1, there was discussions of what are we going to do with parking south of this development? What are we going to do with pedestrian maneuvers along Ori, I think it was, and along True Lane? There were concerns on that. We just didn't have information yet to see how that was going to develop. And that's, as these pieces of the puzzle come together, you're able to study that a little bit further and get a little bit better answer. Could that mean potentially changes in the future on the west side? It could. But I think it was Mark that said it, that as that information becomes available, that we can study.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. I've been in economic development for about 30 years. I've read hundreds of business plans. I've looked at development projects all over the state and some all over the country. People in Ashwaubenon don't understand how fortunate they are to have the Green Bay Packers in the corner here. My hometown has not had a new business in over 40 years. This project alone would dwarf the entire county, my home county's development over the course of 20 or 30 years. Packers have been a great community citizens. They've developed the park and dedicated that to the people of the area, not only Ashwaubenon, but the greater area. They're a world-class organization, and a discussion over a road structure cannot hold up the entire PUD project. I understand concerns. If we know the integrity of the Packers and how they do things, if there are some minor changes or tweaks that need to be done, I'm sure they'll do it. I'm going to make the motion to approve the PUD as presented by the Packers.
Okay,
I'll second that.
we have a motion and a second to approve the PUD overlay zoning district ordinance. Any further comments?
Well, I'm just going to state that the two gentlemen who spoke tonight have substantial investments in this general area. Mr. Keene, Mr. Pampern, and they do great work in this community. Having said that, I think Mr. Keene pointed out, so did Mr. Pampern, we up here have a responsibility to the whole village. And yet, at the end of your talk, you said, do something for our businesses. Well, sometimes that doesn't always jive. You say, on one hand, do something for the village and the residents, but do something for our businesses. Well, I think we try and do both, because you put your money on the line. You've got a lot of money invested, and I think this whole development will benefit, if it hasn't already, it probably has, benefit both of you in the long run. I certainly hope it does. But I just, when it was stated that we sometimes work with our heads in the sand, that struck me as being crossing a line. And I know the people up here don't work that way. We're conscientious. We go out and we check what's on the agenda, check the neighborhood, and drive through it and see what the possible consequences are. And we take these jobs seriously. I've worked with these people, most of them, for a number of years now, and we don't take this job lightly. And the staff is likewise. These are good people. Do we have experts in every line? No. But do we have good, competent people who know what they're doing? Absolutely. So I try, personally, I'm just speaking for myself, I try to give the people who work with a bottom line, and that's both of you. You work with a bottom line. You've got to make money or you're out of business. And I appreciate that. I was in government most of my life, and we didn't have a bottom line except what the budget was. But you've got your personal stake in this area. And if I read you right, Mr. Pampern, you were okay with this, but you wanted us sometime to look at a wider area. That was the question I was going to ask you. You're shaking your head yes, so I don't have to ask you the question. And Mr. Keene, I think what Mark said is right on the money. These things don't happen in a large scale. You know, you referenced our comprehensive plan many times in your very competent talk to the village board. But that plan is a broad, gives a broad scope to things, and it doesn't. Every time the Packers come in with something new, or John and Jane Smith come in with something new, we don't change the comprehensive plan. That's not how a comprehensive plan works. Right. We can't do that. We'd be changing the comprehensive plan every month. Well, it doesn't work that way. So to quote the comprehensive plan and saying we're not following it, I think is really not a fair criticism at all. I think we're staying within the bounds of what we can do, what we can afford. We look to the future. I know I'm rambling on here, but I just think that we have your interests and the interests of the village residents at heart. I really think we do. And I'm done.
Okay.
I think, I'd say something. A lot of this had to do with the particular businesses today, and you touched on it a little bit, I think, Ken. Some of it has to do with the residents too. A lot of that's my area, and I do get some feedback, some concern about some of the traffic that's going to be flowing through directly or indirectly into the area. When we opened up Argonne all the way to Lombardi, we see it in our neighborhood. Some of the traffic that just whizzes by at real good rates of speed. So it's a little bit of the mix. We got to remember the residents too, and I bring that up because just to give you a little example, we talked a lot about the intersection and how many lanes we need there, and if we can work, I'll support this, and because I know we can work on this stuff later. I know we'll all come together with that. But just for a little example, we got to remember too, we can't turn that area into a speedway where all these people are going to be running through our neighborhoods either.
unchecked sometimes.
Okay, any more? Great comments, everybody. Any more questions or comments? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, 10B, action on 2018 excess general fund dollars.
Each year at this time, come before the board to present if we have any fund variances to our budget, no different than years past. So what I have before you is what we're looking at the end of the year. What we want to do, and really what the auditors look for and rating agencies, is they'd like you to designate those funds for some purpose. Otherwise, they just roll on your fund balance, and then if you draw off your fund balance in years future, it can be viewed negatively that you were over budget or under budget, even though if it was for a one-time capital plan. So as we talked a little bit in the budget, we anticipated having some excess funds this year, and we did designate a lot of items out of the budget to be used, to be paid with excess funds. Currently, I'm estimating somewhere around $320,000 that we would have of excess funds. A lot of that was for unknown items. We had a billing agreement with Oneida Service Agreement that $144,000. We had another settlement from Clipstein for $116,000, and then we were able to generate an additional $60,000 of interest with the market rates going up this year. So that's really the gist of it. There's other minor variances throughout the budget, but as a whole, operationally, we were pretty well right on budget. So through the budget process and through also the meeting when on November 27th, the board wanted to allocate $47,000 for the purpose of Argonne Park modifications. I have listed all the things that were in the budget book that we would allocate the funds for, and then that's about $256,000. So that we approved at the budget time. So with the remaining funds, what I would recommend that we do is that we split that 50-50 between a contribution to the Employee Retirement Fund and the Road Reconstruction Fund. Two reasons. With the Road Reconstruction Fund, that's our annual mill pave. We've slowly ramped up the tax dollars into that, but if you recall this past year, we bid that out and it was more than we had budgeted just with cost increases, so we weren't quite able to do 100% of what we wanted to. So this would allow us to have a little extra funds going into next year to stay on track with our mill pave program. And then the Employee Retirement Fund, again, as employees retire, they're able to cash out their accrual balances, things like that. We anticipate a few large payouts over the next year or two, so adding some funds there will not hurt us, and it'll help. Of course, the board can do with excess funds what they want. Once we put it somewhere, we can still change that, but we're just basically designating it in our financial statements, somewhat like reserved or earmarked, if you will, but it's the auditors and the rating agencies see that, and then when you spend it, they recognize, oh, you kind of had a plan in place for those funds and don't view it as an unbudgeted expenditure. So if you don't have any other recommendations or ideas, then I would recommend we go with as laid out here.
I brought before plan board wayfind signage that I thought that was going to get consideration for this as well. And I don't know if we have extra room in our next year's budget, or I don't see it on this list at all.
Well, just to follow that, if I might, I agree with Mark. What's wrong with a little bit of a rainy day fund? I know you and I disagree with this a little bit. We had an item come up, I forget this year, and you and I disagreed in the sense that you thought it ought to be in a budget, and I said, well, you can't always predict what's coming down the road, and we can't. So I would like to see us put something aside.
We do.
And well, but if we pass this, then that tells me that we've committed all of this to something, and we aren't going to have a rainy day fund. You know what I'm talking about. In case something comes up for $5, $10, $15, $20, $50,000 during 2019, you know, we're not either going to be able to do it if it needs to be done, or we're going to have to get some wiggle room someplace. So I would like to see us set some of this aside, and maybe we can't do that. Fire the auditors if they can't say we can't
We
do
do
it.
have, there's still 2017 excess funds that are uncommitted towards other things. There are excess stadium sales tax dollars that are still available. So we do have that. In addition, each year we have varying amounts of excess. In 2019, we would anticipate the same. We just don't know what that number is. And right now we don't know the number for the wayfinding. Should we go ahead with that? We would need to develop where that is, how many signs we need, what that amount is. And so even if you had to, you could still redirect even these funds. Obviously, once Doug does his bidding on the road pave, and it's usually July-ish that's awarded, June-ish, May, then that's committed, but you'd still have some retirement dollars, assuming that we don't otherwise need those. So I think you still have a rainy day fund that you could use for any of those purposes already, or you could redirect it later once we actually know what we need for what purpose.
Can you put that in writing so I can quote you when that comes up?
It'll be in the minutes.
I'm sure the
That's good enough. Good enough.
treasurer
Good enough.
will be
But I agree
duly
with Mark
noting
on the
that.
signage. I don't know if you want to set something aside.
According to what you got here, you got 256,000 that's attributed to these items that were in the budget this year. It leaves about $70,000 left. So what does $35,000 do to the retirement account and or the road construction? I mean, it doesn't really do that much, does it?
Well, the alternative is finding tax dollars to cover. So, I don't know how much square footage 35,000 covers in a road, or if that gets a block. I'm not sure what that would translate there. It's just the idea that it gets us closer to the 100% of what to stay on top of our plan within the road reconstruction. Retirements can vary depending on the department. Those can push 6 figures for an employee who retires. So that fund can be depleted quickly, and that could be depleted quickly over the next 2 years.
So the road replacement fund, didn't we increase that quite substantially?
We've been
this year
increasing that.
already?
We increased it 100,000 going into the 2018 budget, and then we're trying to increase it 25,000 each year. So we'd ideally like to get that up to about $750,000 a year, but that's roughly today's dollars already. So by the time we get there in 3-4 years, we're all behind the ball a little bit. So we're trying there. Doug's doing his best to bid it out and work, get the streets in certain areas to maximize the dollars. But it's seeming the last few years we're still a little bit behind. Maybe we're getting 80% of what we would ideally like to do, and so we're just trying to stay on top of this. So every dollar counts.
So if we once get through the wayfind signage, and if we want to do it or locate it and where we're going to put them and all that kind of stuff, we still have flexibility to do that yet?
Yeah, we would probably take that out of the 2017 or the economic development dollars. The excess sales tax can be used for economic development purposes for which that would qualify.
That stadium sales tax, remember, had those real strict limitations on what it could be used for, and that would be a perfect example of something that it would be able to be used for.
Okay, as long as you tell me that. I'm okay.
It's in the minutes, Mark.
It's in the minutes. Just a
In the
quick
minute,
question.
we're just going to argue about wayfinding later.
Quick question. When you say employee retirement fund, you're not talking about WRS contributions. You're
No.
talking about, okay,
No.
that's fine. I understand.
Yeah, payout.
Allison, question. I thought we had that tax excess money all allocated. You said there's some left over yet?
We had another refund or from the state.
Another
Yeah.
refund
We
came
had that,
in
the
after
original
the
payout
original
originally,
one.
yeah, correct. The original payout was pretty well covered, and then we had another one unknown, about $27,000 last year in 28, or this year.
No,
early.
that
Earlier
answers
this
where that extra money came from then. And then also the road fund, we increased that somewhat, like Mark was getting to, or Ken.
25,000 a year.
But Doug, didn't we have a problem this year because of costs going up? We didn't really get the amount of roads done that we wanted to do, or? you
Right.
wanted to do?
Right, long story short, we talked about it at budget season also. It's been 500,000 for a
Right.
number of years. As the village has grown, if you remember in the mid-90s, the entire southern industrial park was constructed. That increased our roads, our mileage by about 30%. If you add 20 to 25 years on to those dates when those roads were constructed, that gets you to about 2020. To do the number of miles of road within 20 to 25 years, we should do about 5 to 6 miles of road per year. We're doing on average about 3.5 to 4 per year.
Okay.
And we've been doing that for a number of years, so our rating is still good, but as our southern developed area, so our southern industrial park starts coming online needing replacements, that's less we'll be doing in this area because we're doing road paving over a larger area. That's why you're bumping that up, plus we have just natural cost increase that come on over the years for construction.
That's for bituminous paving, correct, Doug?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow, very good.
Makes sense, Gary?
Okay, I understand. So you want to add an excess money that we have now to the road of 35,000, you said?
Well, right now,
Roughly.
the known numbers is 256. Until I have final audited financials, which will be, March-ish, that would give you your final number.
Okay.
I'm using an estimate today. Still have bills coming through, but as I don't foresee any cost overages at this point, so usually that's rough. But you have to wait till once that final audit is done, then I would know what that number is, and that's why I'm saying take whatever's remaining, put 50% in one, 50% in the other.
Okay. All right, that's good. We're adding it to the road projects because.
Well, I'll make a motion that we adopt the use and allocation of the excess 2018 funds as described in item, is it 10B?
Yes.
As described in item 10B, and as set forth there.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to allocate the excess general fund dollars. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10C, possible discussion and action on amendment to public stadium lease agreement. Tony.
This agenda item is with respect to an updated amendment to the Green Bay Booyah agreement. Due to the progression of the construction, we had some additional negotiations with Big Top Baseball, and essentially they have agreed to increase their rental payments on an annual basis as outlined in the attached amendment. And then in addition to that, a couple of other minor or other conditions are included as part of amending the original lease agreement, and those conditions are that the village will no longer contribute $50,000 in years 1 through 5 to the maintenance fund. Big Top will increase their spending to at least $1 million worth of improvements to the stadium in years 5 through 20. The village's obligations for capital improvements is reduced from $1 million to $750,000. The annual maintenance threshold is also going to be increased from $7,500 to $25,000. And if there are any grants that are awarded with respect to this project, the village will receive those proceeds. Lastly, the village has also agreed to use its best efforts in supporting their application for a liquor license. So with respect to those additional negotiations and conditions, I prepared the attached lease amendment, which Big Top has also reviewed and agreed to as well. So with that, we would just ask that that amendment be adopted.
Well, when I first read this, am I reading this right? Due to increased costs, as the first sentence of the green sheet, we are going to be paying less. I'm missing something here. Our financial obligations are going down, but the costs are increasing. Am I missing something?
We've otherwise agreed to additional costs, and then we're also financing a portion through the lease now. But it's really our maintenance obligations over the term of the lease. They're absorbing some of those because for them the cash flow long term is better than in the short run. So there were just some trade-offs in order to get to the ultimate bridging the gap of the overall total cost of the stadium going up.
Okay, thank you. Not sure.
Clear as mud.
Not sure I understand that, but it just confused me when I said when I saw increased cost, but yet it seemed to me, reducing.
We're getting the cost up front.
Yes,
Then
yeah.
they
I'm not
go-
suggesting we pay more money, don't get me wrong. I'm happy with,
We overall, there is cost borne by the village in terms of the overall cost of the stadium.
it's just
but,
redistributed or
But
reallocated.
a portion of those cost overages are shared by them, and so therefore their rent payments went up
Oh,
significantly. They also, as in another form of trying to bridge that gap, have offered to defer what we would otherwise pay in maintenance, they will take on in maintenance.
Are they gonna be ready to open up in beginning of,
May 15th is,
they think they're gonna be able to play ball? on May
well, their
15th?
first game will be scheduled for June 1st.
Wow. I hope they can get her done.
We're
Okay, thank
getting her
you.
done.
I'll make a motion to approve the First Amendment to the Public Stadium Lease Agreement.
Second. Motion and a second to recommend the amendment to the public stadium lease agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 10D, request to adopt ordinance GO 12-2-18, repealing and recreating no parking and special event parking. Allison.
This project kind of got out of hand, but it's a lot of cleanup. The first task that we took on was to clear up the no parking day of Lambeau events because it's very confusing as to when there is a Lambeau event and therefore the no parking would kick in. Ultimately, what we decided was by cleaning up locations where there were no parking day of Lambeau event, there were a lot of areas where it duplicated areas or where they should be no parking at all times, such as on Ridge Road from Lombardi to, well, on the west side, it'll be all the way to Morris, where generally cars don't park, but if you look in front of the stadium, Kroll's, Lodge Kohler, nobody should park there at any point. So we're changing areas such as that over to no parking at all times. That in turn reduced to about 2 miles of roadway that we need no parking day of Lambeau events, and we decided operationally it's doable to just post those areas. We're thinking it's really about 13 times a year at most that we would end up posting for Lambeau events in that full amount of lanes. There's other areas for special events such as Cellcom and whatnot that have other routes that end up getting posted. There may be portions of it posted for smaller concerts such as one that was held this year. Yeah, Steve Miller Band, something like that. We wouldn't necessarily have 4 lanes of traffic heading out after the words took down Mike McCarthy, but there's portions of it that we would, we knew now what we should have known, or what we didn't know then was that so many people would be there, it would have been reduced. So also when we went through this, we found a lot of areas where there was signage that said no parking, but it wasn't in our ordinance. There were areas that were in our ordinance but didn't have appropriate signage. This goes through a full cleanup of all of those areas. We also found some random areas that we didn't understand. Circumstances have just changed in the area that it didn't make sense to prohibit parking anymore. So it contains all of those. There's also a request by property owner and a tenant on Marquee Way, where due to trucks being able to pull in and out to service the building, semis were having a hard time making that turn into the business if employees were parked out on the street. So it also addresses that. They were originally 2 separate items, this Lambeau event plus this Marquee Way on the Public Works and Protection agendas, but it's all contained within the same ordinance in terms of all the locations in which we will not allow parking. The Lambeau event ordinance is changed to just be a special event posting. Part of why that's carved out separately is that there is a higher parking ticket for those events, because certainly parking for a Packer game, if your parking ticket was $25, it would be cheaper than what you would pay to park in somebody's yard. So that's why the fine for those particular parking tickets is higher.
Did you take lessons from Doug and what you just? I mean, that was very good.
He taught me.
Very good. Very good.
I'll make a motion that we approve ordinance GO 12-2-18.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance O-12-2-18.
And just a note too, we would request an amendment. We discovered after submitting this for the agenda item that there was one description that was incorrect that we'd like to correct just as an amendment. And that's with respect to Morris Avenue on page 131 of the packet. The second line down with respect to Morris Avenue indicates south side of street from Holmgren Way to 70 feet east of Oneida Street intersection. That should read south side of street from Oneida Street to 70 feet east of Oneida Street intersection. So we'd substitute Oneida Street for Holmgren Way. We had the intersections flipped.
That's fine.
Second agrees to that amendment.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance O-12-2-18 with the changes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 10E, possible discussion and action on ordinance 012-1-18 relating to loud and unnecessary noise.
All right, this proposed ordinance is really to kind of make sure that two separate ordinances complement each other. We have a noise ordinance in Chapter 9 and a noise ordinance in Chapter 3. The Chapter 3 ordinance pertains to licensed outdoor areas. The Chapter 9 ordinance is the village-wide noise ordinance. What this does is cleans it up so that the timeframes in the two ordinances can kind of complement or work together with each other, so that the conditions in the licensed establishment outdoor area ordinances do not apply under the regular general noise ordinance in Chapter 9, as well as for any village-approved special events. So that just kind of carves out an exception to those from our general noise ordinance, and then also cleans up the language.
Move to approve ordinance 012-1-18.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve ordinance 012-1-18. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 10F, action on request for food truck rally beer license and resolution approval. Rex.
As most of you know, we're looking at holding 3 food truck rallies in 2019 at Ashwaubenon Park. One in June, one in July, one in August, all of them being on Thursday nights. We're working with a particular vendor right now who's getting together our food truck lineup. Looks like we'll be having about 6 or 7 trucks there. With that, we're going to be having either movies in the park or special events at the lake, different family games going on within the interior of Ashwaubenon. As such, with all the fun and festivities going on, it looks like the food trucks would rather not serve drinks of any kind, whether that be soda, water, or beer. Apparently, according to the food truck vendor that's organizing it, takes up a lot of space in their vehicles, and they would like to concentrate on the food. Therefore, we are requesting a beer license to be able to serve beer to go along with the soda and water that we will be serving. Staff would be the one serving it. We've already talked with Eric Dunning, our Director of Public Safety, who's on board with the plan, and we'd be making up a little bit more of a specific map of the site when the time comes near. But right now, we're looking at approval for that beer license in Ashwaubenon for those 3 food truck rallies, as well as the approval of the attached resolution.
There's no questions. Let's move to approve your beer license and the attached, what do you want to call it? Recommendation
Resolution.
for the food event.
Second. Motion and a second to approve resolution number R12-1-18. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Thank you.
11, items for next agenda. The next agenda is next year, just saying. Call the office if you have anything. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Good luck, Dan.